Hello, mic test. Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Good day and welcome to our IELTS teacher training. In today's training, we focus on IELTS writing task 1, um, mainly focusing on task achievement or on how to get a better score in IELTS task 1 criteria, which is task achievement. Now, before that, let us first check here the coverage of our IELTS teacher training. So in the last few trainings, we covered IELTS speaking, and we covered everything we need to know on how to upgrade our skills and our score in IELTS speaking. And again, today, our main focus on this session is IELTS writing task 1, focusing mainly on task achievement data essays. In the last training, we cover, or in the previous meeting, we covered the overview for IELTS writing task 1. So today we're going to explore more on how to upgrade our scores or skill in achieving tasks in IELTS Writing Task 1, mainly data essays. Now, here is a quick look of the entire Writing Task 1 essay. So there is an introduction, there is an overview, body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. And here, as you can see here at the bottom of this paper, or Writing Task 1 sheet, you can see here how the candidate is rewarded. So we have here 4 criteria, which is TA or task achievement, CC or cohesion and coherence, lexical resource or vocabulary, or GRA, grammatical range and accuracy. Now, to understand better how to improve our score in IELTS Writing Task 1 task achievement, here's the 3 key points. First, we have to understand the task. Then we need to identify the overall trend. And lastly, we need to know how to group the information. So we're going to delve deeper into these 3 key areas in achieving Band 7.0 in task achievement Writing Task 1. So to understand that more deeply, again, we have here 3 key points. First is to understand the task. Second is to have a clear overview. And third, we have describing the main trends or differences, or in other words, how we should group the information. Okay. Again, we need to understand the task, we need to present a clear overview, and we need to present the main trends and differences. So first of all, understand the task. So what do we mean by understanding the task? So to understand the task, it means we need to understand the essay type. Secondly, we need to understand the essay structure. And thirdly, we need to understand the subject. So what are these essay types? Last meeting, we learned about the essay types, okay? Again, to understand the task means to understand the essay types, to understand the essay structure, and to understand the subject. And in the last meeting, we have learned about the essay tasks. So there are two essay types in data essays. So we have here the dynamic graph and we have here the static graph. So the dynamic graph, again, as a review or a recap, so the dynamic graph are those graphs that shows trends and movement or movement, okay? So that means there is a movement. So when there is a movement, there's a series of timeline. For example, in this dynamic graph here, which is line graph, there's a series of timeline. There is a year 1995, 1990, up to 2010. So there is a series of timeline. Without this, it's called static graph, okay? Or if there's only one timeline, like this, it is a static graph. But if there are 2 timelines like this, it is dynamic graph, all right? As you can see here, in contrast, the static graph shows only not a timeline. So this is a different age groups, okay? Not a timeline. And this is the percentage of those age groups who experience these 3 things when they work and study abroad, all right? So that is the first thing we need to understand. So when we say understand the task, it means if we understood the essay type, is that essay a dynamic graph or is that essay a static graph? Okay, so that's very clear. Now for the essay structure, so there are 2 essay structures. The most common one is this one. This is the most common essay structure. So it has an introduction, followed by an overview, a clear overview, and followed by 2 body paragraphs, 1 or 2 body paragraphs. So we have body paragraph 1, and the body paragraph should contain the details, and those details there contain the description of what the graph is, that means describe, and it also contains the comparison of what the graph shows. Okay, the comparison of what the graph shows. So that's the contents of the body paragraphs. All right. And this is the body paragraph 2 for the first structure, the most common structure. So again, the most common structure here, the most common essay structure here for writing task 1 is that there is an introduction followed by an overview, then followed by 1 or 2 body paragraphs. So later on, you will understand why I say 1 or 2 body paragraphs. And the second structure, on the other hand, is like this. We have the introduction, we have body paragraph 1, and the same thing, each body paragraph should contain the description of what the graph is and the comparison of what shows in the graph. So there's a body paragraph 2, and it's ended by a conclusion, which is very similar to an overview. However, it's placed at the last paragraph. So it shouldn't be a introduction, overview, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and conclusion. It shouldn't be that way. Okay, so it should be first it should be this structure A or structure B, the most common structure or the other type of structure. Okay. Now the subject, understand the task again. So when we say understand the task, we have it means we have to understand the essay types. So there are 2 essay types of data essays. We have the dynamic graphs and static graphs. Then for the essay structure, we have 2 essay structures. All right. So we have the most common one, which has introduction, overview, body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2, and the other one we have the second option or second essay structure, we have introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and conclusion. Now the subject. Understanding the subject is the most important in writing task 1. It is the most important to get a band 7.0 in writing task 1. And many students actually have an issue or problem in understanding the subject. So, which is why they would often ask me, teacher, why couldn't I get a higher band score in writing task 1 or writing task 2 or writing task 1? Because it is our concern today. So I said yes, because the most common issue here is our ability or the student's ability to understand the subject. So what do I mean by understanding the subject? So what is the subject of the essay? So there is a main question there, okay? What is a subject in the essay? What is being asked in the graph? That is a subject there. What is being asked in the graph? So for example, here in this graph, what does it ask you? The graph asks you to summarize information of the international visitors to New Zealand. All right, this is the main subject. And this is what the graph asks you. It asks you to give a summary of the international visits to New Zealand. And it shows here, and to understand that, these are some guided questions to understand the graph. So here, for example, what is the main reason for visiting New Zealand for a holiday? What percentage of those people visiting there? 10% for family and friends. What does the figure represent? It represents the number of people who go to New Zealand on business. Other means other reasons. And in general, or an overview, do more people visit New Zealand for work or for pleasure? So of course, for pleasure. Now, where is the issue here for many students? All right. So as I've mentioned earlier, that the subject or what is being asked in the graph is international visits to New Zealand. So people go there in business, and only 13% of them go to New Zealand for business. And 20% who visits New Zealand, their main purpose is to visit their friends and relatives. And the largest proportion of those who come to New Zealand are on holiday or for pleasure and entertainment. Now, where is the problem here? The problem is here is like this. So instead of focusing on the subject, the students focuses on the numbers or on the figures, all right? They focus on this, all right, on the numbers or figures, and they haven't focused on what is being asked in the graph, which is the international visitors to New Zealand. So they would say, or most of them, or some of them, or most I would say, business is 13%, while holiday is 47%. They would say this way, all right? While holiday is 47%, they will say this way. Instead of saying, the largest percentage, which is 47%, go there on holiday, 20% visit New Zealand in order to see friends and family, 30% go there in business, etc., they would write this way. So which means that they haven't answered the task, okay? Or they haven't delivered the task. So the task there is to deliver the information about the main subject, which is, in this case, the number of visitors who go to New Zealand. So that is where most students fail to see what is being asked in the graph. Another example is this one, okay? So if you look at the graph here, what is being asked here in the graph are the information here shows about traveling to work in one US city. So that means, how do people in one US city travel to work? So people travel to work by car, only one person in one car, also by car, but more than one person in one car. Some of them, because as you can see, only a few figures here. Some of them go to work on foot or cycling, while others go to work by train or by bus, okay? So that's how the people in one city in the US travel to work. Okay, so that is a subject there. Now, what happens here when candidates, right, or yes, candidates misunderstood the subject is they would say like this. So they would say, so instead of saying, yeah, so instead of saying, yeah, they would say, for example, cycle walk is only 4, while train bus is 3. All right. So the focus is here. All right. They focus on the figures. They give more attention to the figures and focus on the figures and fail to describe what is being asked in the graph, right? So instead of saying, for example, some people in the US, or only a few number of people in the US go to work on foot or cycling at 4%, uh, uh, using train or bus, on the other hand, is larger, what is that? Which covers 23 miles, okay, in distance. Okay, so again, the key issue here for not achieving the subject is, the key issue for not achieving or for not totally understanding the task is when students fail to understand the subject. And even those who are at the advanced level have some issues on trying to put their understanding of the subject into words or into writing. So that's the main reason why they hardly ever had a score or higher score in task achievements. If you can see here in task achievement, all right, the score is 5, okay? Mainly because the candidate failed to understand the subject. So for example, here in regard to the pie chart, public cases recorded accounts of most of the chart, okay, with both overnight and same-day stays taking up 30% each. So the subject is the main issue here. All right, so that is why I encircle, all right? I encircle um, the points in which the candidate misunderstood the subject. Okay, so there's a clear introduction. There's also a clear overview. There are a few errors in grammar. Okay. However, the issue here is in task achievement and grammatical range and accuracy. Okay. Okay. Here's another example for a student who have failed to understand the subject. So we have here, in 5 Australian states, public hospitals are higher. Public hospitals are higher than private hospitals. So as you can see here, it's not the public hospitals which is higher than private hospitals, but it is the number of stays, okay? The number of patients in public hospitals shows much higher percentage than those number of patients in private hospitals. Okay, so that's what should be written in the overview to cover the understanding of the subject. And as you can see here, there is one example here, all right? And use only comparison for data essays. So finally, this is for vocabulary. So anyway, our main focus today is understanding the subject. Okay. And there are several more examples like this, okay, from several students, even those who are at the intermediate level students or advanced students. Some of them failed to cover the task. They cover the entire task, okay? So if you say cover the entire task, it means we have to understand not only the essay types, okay? For data essays, there are two types, the dynamic essay and the static essay. The essay structure there are also two options. The first option, we have the introduction, overview, body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. And the second option, we have introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and conclusion. And the main thing here is that we should understand the subject, or the candidate must understand the subject, or if they do understand the subject, they must put their understanding clearly in writing. So that's the point there. That's the issue there. Okay. So again, in writing task 1 data essays, to understand the task is that we have to understand 3 key points. To understand the essay types, to understand the essay structure, and to understand the subject. Okay. Now, lastly, presenting a clear overview. So again, for task achievement, there are 3 key things. Understand the task, presents a clear overview, and present the main trends and differences. Now let's move on to presenting a clear overview. The second one, okay? So again, for understanding the task, we have to understand 3 key things, all right? Understand the subjects, understand the essay types, understand the structure or know the structure, and essay structure, and understand the subject. And the third one, understand the subject, is a key thing, the main issue for many students. All right, now we have your clear overview. For clear overview, which is the second criteria for band 7.0. So for clear overview, now we have here for overview, again, we should only cover the what is the most obvious in the graph. The most obvious there is that is there an obvious rising in data essay? Is there an obvious rising or increase? Is there an obvious decrease, or is there an obvious fluctuations? Or is there an obvious, which one has the highest percentage or the lowest percentage? Okay, so that's how we checked the overview for writing task 1. Okay. Now, in writing the overview, one must only write the general trend. That means without details. In other words, there shouldn't be any numbers or figures, no numbers or figures. Okay, that must be very clear. All right. So, for example, here, as you can see in these two as you can see in these line graphs here, we have here the percentage of New Zealand primary school students learning a second language by language learned between the year 2006 and 2014. All right. Now, as you can see here, those who study German as their second language, okay, so that is a subject, okay? So those students in those primary school students in New Zealand studying German as a second language showed a significant drop. So how do we know that? We just need to check the beginning point, the starting point, and the ending point. Okay. On the other hand, those students in those primary school students in New Zealand learning Chinese as their second language shows a dramatic increase. And to do that, to identify an increase, so we can check here the starting point and the ending point. Okay, so that's how we identify clear trend, okay, or overview in data essay. We just have to check here the most obvious trends. So is there a significant, for example, again, in data essays, we should consider things like, is there a significant increase, a significant decrease, the highest point, the lowest point, fluctuation, clear fluctuations, and so on. Now here, for example, how can we identify the overview here in this data essay dynamic graph? Why is it dynamic? As I've mentioned earlier, if there are a series of timelines or two timelines, it's a dynamic essay. So as you can see here, there are two time periods. That is a 2004 and 2014, period 2004 and period 2014. Right? So as you can see here, there are two periods, okay, in 2004 and 2014. Now, how should we make a clear overview, okay? Now, like this, we have to, in this case, again, we have to identify the group with the same pattern. That is the most obvious thing there. The most obvious is the group with the same pattern. So which group had the same pattern? As you can see here, there is a growth, okay? So the clear pattern here is that there is a growth, obviously, all right? In both. So what does this graph show? The graph here shows about the prevalence of obesity among boys and girls in different ethnic groups in the US. The studies here has been done, has been conducted in the year 2004 and 2014, right? So the most obvious one is that there is a growth, okay, of obesity in both gender, all right, boys and girls in different in these three ethnic groups: the non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic black, and Hispanic groups. So there's an increase of obesity rate in US in these ethnic groups. Yes, so there is again a group with the same pattern. All right. So the answer is yes. Now, how about their comparison? So when I say relationship means their comparison. How do we compare these two things? How are these two graphs related? How is this graph A, all right, and graph B related? Of course, they show relevant, certainly. So they show relevant. So how are they relevant? So the relevance here is this one. Has this rise of obesity affected much of the non-Hispanic white boys and Hispanic girls? So the answer there is no. So as you can see here, although there is a growth of obesity, in both gender, um, uh, male and boys and girls in different ethnic groups. So there is a growth of the obesity rate, but the least affected ones, or the least the least affected ones are those in non-Hispanic white. Okay, which shows only um, like 5% increase only as compared to other ethnicities, and gender. All right. Now you can also say you can also vary your you can also say the least affected ones are the non-Hispanic white groups, or you can also say the most affected ones are those in most affected maybe in the Hispanic boys, maybe, right? So there is a significant growth here. 12 to 7, 13 to 27. Yes. So there is you can choose this option here. The least affected ones are both of these, all right? Or you can say that the most affected ones are those in Hispanic boys uh, ethnic groups. Okay. So that is why in our overview, we can say overall, it can be clearly seen that there is an increase of obesity rate. That is the most obvious trend there. Okay. There is an increase of obesity rate for both boys and girls from all ethnic groups. But, okay, so relationship, that means the comparison, okay? But this does not have a huge effect among non-Hispanic whites and Hispanic girls, okay? So it doesn't have much effects, okay, among non-Hispanic whites and Hispanic girls. All right. So that's how we present a clear overview. So again, for data essays, in presenting a clear overview, so we must identify what's most obvious in the graph. And to do that, we have to identify the group that shows the same pattern. So when we say the same pattern means a pattern of increase, a pattern of decrease, fluctuation, highest or lowest, all right? So that's how we shouldn't focus mainly on the numbers or figures, all right? Because it can lead to confusion, more confusion if you check the numbers in detail. Just identify the um, same trends or same pattern, all right? Same pattern, same trends. So that's how we easily identify the overview for writing task 1. Now we move on to presenting the main trends and differences. Again, so this is the last one in understanding the task to getting a band 7.0 for IELTS writing task 1. So again, we have covered the first criteria, which is understanding the task. And again, here we learned 3 key points in understanding the task. So we have to understand the essay type, the structure, and the subject. And the most crucial one is understanding the subject. Presenting clear overview, which is again pretty easy to identify in data essay. So we should only identify the group that shows the same pattern, right? Or the same trends, the same movement, all right? So when we say this, when we say same pattern means the pattern of increase, decrease, highest, lowest, or fluctuations, all right? Now, lastly, presenting the main trends and differences is to group our information. So which information should we write in body paragraph 1 and which information should we write in body paragraph 2, okay? So normally, right, I mean, not normally, but for basic uh, writing in IELTS writing or IELTS foundation. So we normally group the information into top to bottom. All right. So we normally group them top to bottom. Okay. So this is we write this information in body paragraph 1, and we write this information in body paragraph 2. That's the basic way of grouping our information, grouping the information in IELTS writing task 1 data essays, all right? So however, when we upgrade our skill in grouping the information, we shouldn't group them top to bottom, all right? Instead, just like what we have learned a while ago, we have to identify the same trend, okay? Same trend or same pattern. So as you can see here, the same trend here or pattern here is that in this type of assay or data assay is that this trend shows an increase of obesity rate for both boys and girls in different ethnic groups. All right. Now, again, it is a stern warning for candidates to group their information from top to bottom or from left to right. So, on how to avoid that? So, to avoid that is simply to again identify the the trend or the group that shows the same movement or same pattern. So here, for example, in this in grouping the information here, what should be written in the body in our body paragraph 1? Okay, for example here. So what should be written in body paragraph 1 is we should write the same trend. That means the increase. Okay, so we should write that there is an increase of obesity rate for both boys and girls, right? In these ethnic groups. And in body paragraph 2, in body paragraph 2, we should write here the comparison or the relationship. So again, here in body paragraph 1, we write the trend or group with the same pattern for both, all right? For both gender, boys and girls. And body paragraph 2, we should write here the comparison or relationship, all right? So we should write here, for example, that the least affected here is the non-Hispanic whites and Hispanic girls. That's the least affected, and the most affected ones are the Hispanic and this one and the rest. Okay. Now here's an example here. This is a table. So how should we group the information here? So as you can see here, this is an example of static graph in which there is only one timeline. So the timeline here is last year's analysis about the workforce in the US who were born in the USA and those who were not born in the USA or of those foreign birth. Now, how do we group the information here since there's only one timeline and there's a same category here, gender. So how do we group the information here? So we group the information. So as you can see, we group the information here. So this is our first body paragraph, gender. Is our first body paragraph, this one. And this is our second body paragraph in both graphs. So we combine both graphs, okay? So again, body paragraph 2 is green. That is the information here from table on the top and table below. And our body paragraph 1 is the information here, the table at the top by gender and table below. Okay, so we don't write this in body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. Okay, instead we combine like this. All right. So for example, this is an example body paragraph 1. All right. So the example body paragraph 1 here shows about gender. All right. Here in both tables. So for example, with regard to the employment of workers, there is a significant gap between US natural born and foreign birth. So in terms of the total number of employees, the former with 129, so we have here 129,533. So this is a total workforce of those workers who are born in the US. Their total workforce is 129,533, shows fivefold greater. So their number shows fivefold greater in number than the latter, which is only 24,357. Despite this, what shows similar between them is the balance. So despite these huge differences, there is a balance between the workers, regardless of gender and their unemployment rate, which both countries of region counts to nearly 10%. So despite their big differences in number, there is a balance of the workforce between male and female. So male and female only show differences 56 out of 56,000 female and 60,000 male workers. And their unemployment rate is also don't show a very big gap or significant gap. So the same thing with those who were born of foreign birth, right? They show also almost equal percentage of male and female workers. And they also show an almost equal percentage of unemployment rates, okay? So that's one example of grouping information by not grouping them from top to bottom or left to right, okay? Okay, and this is again the body paragraph 2, as I mentioned earlier. So our body paragraph 2 focusing on the age groups and age groups here, okay, which is our body paragraph 2. All right. Now turning to the number of workers from different age groups, workers from both US and foreign births show the same pattern. So it is illustrated in the data that the age groups 25 to 54 constitute greater proportion. So the age 25 to 54, so these age groups, okay, these age groups here, all right, shows or constitutes greater proportion in comparison to younger and older age groups with 5,000 workers from foreign birth. This is 5,000 workers from foreign birth, so roughly 5,000 foreign birth. And 27 to 30,000 from US birth. So these figures reflect in the unemployment rate among teenagers. So because of this, there are a greater number of teenagers from 16 to 24 who are unemployed, all right? So because the number of workforce, okay, are high in ages 25 to 54, so obviously the number of unemployment rate are those in teenage groups from 16 to 24, all right? And so these figures reflect in the unemployment rate among teenagers, which is the highest with nearly a fifth, but it's certainly not among the elderly. So the elderly here, the percentage here is only 8.9% for unemployment rate and 6.4% of unemployment rate. Okay, so I hope this is clear, okay? So again, for task achievements, the grouping of information here or the describing describing the main trends and differences, also called the grouping of our information. Okay. Now, again, as a short recap, so when we say task achievement and to get a band 7.0 for task achievement in writing task on data essay, the first is we have to understand the task. So in understanding the task, again, we need to understand the essay type, the essay structure, and the subject. For a clear overview, understanding the subject is the most crucial one, as most students, or there are many students actually fail to get a 7.0 in writing task 1, mainly because of not totally understanding, not completely understanding the task. Okay. And the main issue there is understanding the subject. For a clear overview here, describing main trends and differences. So for data essay, for clear overview, which means one must identify the main trends and differences, or the main trends, which is the group that shows the same pattern. And the warning here is the candidate must not group the information from top to bottom or left to right. Okay, that's clear. And then The last criteria for band 7.0 in describing in getting a better score for task achievement is to describe the main trends and differences. And to do that, again, this is how we group our information, or which information should be written in the first body paragraph and which information should be written in second body paragraph. Okay. All right. So now we understand here how to get a band 7.0 for writing task one data essay. So I hope that you learned enough from this short session, and you will use this in your IELTS writing task one. So that's all for today. And if you want to join our IELTS teacher training online and modular courses, please feel free to message us on these contact information, which you can find on my screen. So that's all for today, and have a good day.